The colony ship drifted through the void, engines cold and life support failing. Inside, 300 Veloran refugees huddled together in the cargo bay, their bioluminescent skin flickering weakly in the darkness. Their homeworld had been consumed by their dying star, and their own people had deemed them unworthy of rescue. The colony ship that carried them was old, barely functional, and had been sent away from the main fleet with minimal supplies and a broken navigation system. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the merchant vessel Horizon's Edge, studying the distress beacon that had appeared on their sensors. His crew gathered around him, their faces reflecting the blue glow of the holographic display. "It's Veloran," said Riley, the communications officer. She tapped her console, bringing up the translated message. "They're requesting emergency assistance. Life support is at 15%. How many souls on board?" Marcus asked. 300, give or take." Riley paused, her expression troubled. "Captain, there's something else." The message indicates they were deliberately separated from their main evacuation fleet. They're refugees, but their own people left them behind. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. The Velorans were known throughout the galaxy as a proud species, highly stratified by genetic castes. It didn't take much imagination to understand what had happened. These refugees were likely from the lower castes, deemed expendable when resources became scarce. "Set a course to intercept," Marcus ordered, "and get me aligned to Earth Command." His first officer, a weathered woman named Torres, stepped forward. "Captain, we're a merchant vessel. We have supplies for the Andromeda Station. If we divert, then the station waits." Marcus met her eyes. "We're not leaving 300 people to die in the dark." The Horizon's Edge was not built for rescue operations, but humanity had learned to adapt. Within hours, the crew had jury-rigged airlocks and prepared the cargo holds. Medical Officer Kent prepared the small infirmary for triage, knowing it would be overwhelmed. When they docked with the failing colony ship, Marcus led the boarding team himself. The airlock hissed open, and the smell hit them first recycled air, pushed far beyond its limits, the acrid scent of failing systems. The Velorans who met them were thin, their skin barely glowing, their large eyes wide with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. The leader of the refugees stepped forward. His name was Terran, and despite his weakened state, he held himself with dignity. Through the translation device, his voice was soft. "You are human." "We are," Marcus confirmed. "We're here to help." Terran's expression shifted, confusion replacing the wariness. "But we are of no value to you. We have no resources, no trade goods. We were deemed unworthy by our own people." Marcus extended his hand, a human gesture the Veloran wouldn't understand, but would hopefully recognize as peaceful. "Where we come from, a person's worth isn't measured by what they can trade. It's measured by the fact that they're alive and need help." The evacuation took 6 hours. The Velorans moved slowly, weakened by malnutrition and the failing life support. Marcus's crew worked tirelessly, carrying the young and elderly, distributing food and water, offering blankets and calm words. Riley worked the communication station, coordinating with Earth Command and nearby vessels, arranging for additional support. Torres approached Marcus in the corridor, her expression unreadable. "Captain, I need to apologize. I was wrong to question this." Marcus shook his head. "You were thinking about our mission, our obligations. That's your job." He watched as crew members helped Veloran children across the airlock, saw how his people smiled and encouraged them despite the language barrier. "But this is who we are. Humanity learned this lesson the hard way, centuries ago. We've been the refugees, the abandoned, the ones left to die. We swore we'd never let that happen to anyone else if we could help it." Word of the rescue spread across the human networks faster than the Horizon's Edge could travel. By the time they reached the nearest Earth outpost on New Terra, a response was already being organized. Medical teams stood ready. Temporary housing had been prepared. Volunteers lined up to donate supplies, time, and resources. The Valoran refugees stepped off the ship onto New Terra soil, and many of them collapsed to their knees, overwhelmed. They had been cast aside by their own kind, left to die in the cold darkness of space. Now they stood under the warm light of an alien sun, surrounded by beings who had crossed the void to save them. Torrin sought out Marcus before the captain could depart. The Valoran skin glowed brighter now, properly fed and rested. "I must know," Torrin said through the translator. "Why?" "Your people gain nothing from this." Marcus considered the question. He thought about Earth's history, about wars and prejudice, about the times humanity had failed each other spectacularly. He thought about the lessons learned, the slow and painful growth toward something better. "We gain everything," Marcus finally said. "We gain the knowledge that when someone needed help, we were there. We gain neighbors, maybe friends. We gain the proof that we're becoming the species we want to be, not the species we were." Torrin's large eyes glistened. "The rest of the galaxy sees you as young, reckless, emotional. They mock your tendency to intervene, your inability to simply observe suffering without acting." "Let them mock," Marcus replied. "We'd rather be judged for helping than for standing by." Months passed. The Valoran refugees integrated into the human colonies, their skills and knowledge welcomed. Some became teachers, sharing their understanding of stellar mechanics and energy systems. Others became artists, their bioluminescent art forms creating entirely new schools of expression. Children played together in the streets, human and Valoran, their laughter universal. The Valoran High Council, operating from their new homeworld secured far from human space, sent a formal communication. They demanded the return of the refugees, claiming them as Valoran property and citizens. The message was cold, bureaucratic, devoid of any acknowledgement of how they had abandoned these people in the first place. Earth's response was simple and direct. "These are free individuals who have requested asylum. We do not return people to those who abandon them to death. They will remain under human protection for as long as they wish." The Council threatened sanctions, trade restrictions, diplomatic consequences. Humanity's answer was to offer asylum to any other Valoran who wished to leave the strict caste system behind. Within a year, thousands more had made the journey, not as refugees this time, but as immigrants seeking a better life. Torrin stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above New Terra, watching the planet turn below. Marcus had come to visit, his ship resupplying before heading back out into the trade routes. "Your people have a saying," Torrin said. "Home is where the heart is." I never understood it before. Valorans believe home is where you are born, where your caste determines your place. His skin pulsed with a warm, golden light. But now I understand. Home is where you are welcomed, where you are valued simply for being alive. Marcus stood beside him, looking down at the blue and green world below. "You've built something here. Your people and mine, working together." "Not my people and yours," Torrin corrected gently. "Our people. That is the gift humanity gave us. Not just shelter, not just survival, but belonging." News of humanity's actions rippled through the galaxy. Some species praised them. Others criticized them for interfering in Valoran internal affairs. But slowly, carefully, other refugees began to appear at human outposts. A family of Kryn fleeing persecution. A group of Thalian scientists whose research had been deemed heretical. Individual after individual, carrying nothing but hope. And humanity, despite the strain on resources, despite the diplomatic complications, despite the warnings from more established species to stop meddling, opened their doors again and again. In the Grand Council of Galactic Civilizations, the elder species debated humanity's actions. Some called them naive, others called them dangerous. But a growing number looked at the thriving mixed communities spreading through human space and began to wonder if perhaps the young species understood something fundamental that the older civilizations had forgotten, that every life has value, that compassion is not weakness, that the measure of a civilization is not its power or its wealth, but how it treats those who have nothing left. Marcus Webb retired from active service years later, settling on New Terra. He lived in a neighborhood where human and Valoran children played in the streets, where a dozen different species had built homes side by side. On clear nights, he would sit on his porch and watch the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, more ships full of hope were making their way toward human space. They came because of a simple truth that humanity had learned through its own painful history, and now offered freely to the galaxy. Everyone deserves shelter. Everyone deserves dignity, and no one should be left to die in the dark. The humans had been abandoned once too, in the metaphorical sense, left to struggle alone on a single world, learning through failure and suffering. Now they ensured that no one else would face that darkness, without a hand reaching out to pull them into the light. That was the human way. That was their gift to the stars